will come. It's been suggested by two people here. It's our view that all you have to do to get socialism is the majority of want it. They go to the polling booth and they put an X against the socialist messenger boy or messenger girl, and then they go back and sit back. But of course, that's not what the situation would be like at all. That's just you know the mechanism. Before you could have a socialist majority elected to Parliament, you'd obviously have a socialist majority outside Parliament, and that socialist majority would be organising themselves democratically, you know, without leaders, to take over and run society once this formal element of taking over Parliament and using political power to dispossess the capitalists and to coordinate the changeover. So we're not just saying all you've got to do to get socialism is to vote for it. And as a matter of fact, it's our official party position that if, as is conceivable, sections of the capitalist class should try to resist the establishment of socialism, then they'll have to be dealt with. I mean, that's, you know, we're not absolute pacifists who are going to let the capitalists, you know, because they threaten violence, stop socialism. But in any event, even if the capitalists were to do this, they would bring the house of cards down, you know, on themselves, because if a majority of people want socialism, there's nothing that's going to stop them getting socialism, you know, one way or the other. What our policy is to, in the first instance, to try to get it democratically, peacefully via the existing political institutions. But if well, it's like the Charters said, peaceably if we may, forcibly if we must.
Okay. I gave him about 6 minutes, so you can have 6 minutes.
Thanks for the 6 minutes. Well, I don't disagree with the last comment, of course. Very briefly, in relation to the question of the word socialist, I think, now that you pointed it out to me, the way it was used in the early 20s was in either, as I said, with quotation marks, or else in a kind of ambiguous way, in which what they mean by socialist industrialization or socialist industries, they mean kind of planned industries or our industries or Communist Party industries. That's what they really mean by it. You only have to read, actually, the understanding of Lenin and Trotsky as where they're going to realize that they know that this isn't anything to do with what a future social society would actually be like. They don't regard this as their aim. Their aim is for Germany to go socialist. They absolutely care about it 101 times over. It's true that it's been misinterpreted many times. What I now briefly want to do is to take up this last kind of thing. Matthew has brought up the question of what the overall impact was of the Revolution 1917, and pointed out it wasn't just in Russia. It's true. We had a revolution in Hungary, we had a revolution in Bavaria, Germany was highly unstable. There was in fact a revolution in 1918, November 1918. That is why the war came to an end, of course. That's why they had an armistice. Germany was highly unstable. It was perfectly possible that workers would take power. You had a world which was unstable. Why didn't they take power in that time? It wasn't that they didn't have a substantial section of the working class which didn't want socialism. They clearly did want socialism. Why? You have to answer that. And the answer in the end has to be that there actually wasn't a party capable of doing it. There isn't any other kind of answer that one can actually produce in that particular instance. It was a generalized phenomenon. If you go through practically every country of Europe, the level of discontent was at a peak. If there actually wasn't an attempt to take power, there was a general strike one way or another, even in Switzerland. So, but nothing went beyond it. But the Russian Revolution did succeed for a time. And Matthew is right, partly because of the overall discontent of the population at the time, and which continued in some sense, and partly because they did succeed. They did actually beat the armies of the West. It changed the entire nature of the epoch. The capitalist class understood it could be overthrown, and that it had to do two things. One was to repress where it was necessary, and the other was to concede where it was necessary. And it has changed our epoch completely. As a result, partly as a result, we have a welfare state today. It isn't just that you had Labour Party coming in 1945. The capitalist class conceded and understood it could be overthrown. It didn't want to be overthrown. The nature of capitalism itself has changed as a result. It's not capitalist, it is capitalism. but it is a capitalism in decline. The decline is both subjective, to which I'm referring to, and is also objective. Part, of course, of Marxism is the heritage of dialectics. You cannot have a capitalism which doesn't come into being, mature, and decline. We're in a declining capitalism. Part of it is subjective. Now, what has held it up today in its decline? And in its decline, it becomes more unstable than it was, or becomes unstable than it was. What has held it up is precisely what Adam was referring to, that it did what I take as the defeat of the Russian Revolution has held the world back a century. And it was known to people in Russia at the time, sort of dead Russians. There's an account in a book by Victor Serge and Trotsky's wife of how in 1922, I think it was 22 or 23, one of the leading Bolsheviks came to them and said, "We've lost." And stood. "We've lost," he said, "and the world will now could be held back for a century." So they understood that taking of power by this new social group, which Trotsky called the bureaucratic apparatus, I'd call it illegal, you call it, if you want to call it a class, had set the world back, and that is what has actually happened. Now it's more than just that the Soviet Union was nothing to do with socialism. It ruined the entire concept of socialism. It is also that the Communist parties prevented anything happening. It is also that the Soviet Union in its existence, through the Cold War, and through the Soviet Union itself operating through the Communist parties, prevented anything else happening. It stabilized capitalism objectively and subjectively. That is why nothing could happen. And it didn't happen. That is no longer there. The absence of the Cold War, the absence of Stalinism is crucial to the destabilization of capitalism. That is why, in the end, in the operations of the laws of capitalism can come back into being, and we can have the crisis we've got today. We have a genuine crisis of capitalism comparable to 1929. And although it will come to an end because the working class is not going to seize power, so it's not ready to take power, although it will come to an end, capitalism will remain more unstable than it has for the past 50 or 60 years. So the opportunities for socialists are greater than they have been in most of our lifetimes. I think that is the reality. Of course, I agree with the point that the capitalist class will have to be dealt with if it has to be there, if it has to be dealt with. But the idea that one cannot have people elected by, whether by society as a whole, or by party or parties, who are going to take things forward, is, I have to say, impossible and absurd. We do not have any other form. That is the nature of the form. Obviously, what you need is the highest level of democracy to control people who are leading the party or whatever. Throw them out as soon as possible if they don't do what's required. Change them. But you have to have that group. And if you are going to deal with the bourgeoisie, the bourgeoisie is going to deal with you. And they're more likely to deal with you first than you are to deal with them. So we have to have people ready, people who are capable of acting. They don't have to be great geniuses, but they have to be able to act. Thank you.